Pretty peaceful. Little breezy. No bears. Weird. This fog's making it chilly though. They like the heat. I don't know why. I don't know why they like the heat. Imagine having a big black fur coat and only coming out when the sun's shining. Usually. I don't know how they do it. Their mating season should be like peaking right out right now. They should be running around like mice. I don't know why they aren't. Probably because of the fog and the chill, I'm guessing. I'll bet one comes out while we're here. I'm gonna go nose the boat into that shoreline behind me there, so you guys can face that old collapsed cabin and grass patch. It's a big major game crossing there. Maybe you'll see something go behind me while I'm sharing people's voices with the people. I'm gonna do that. Yeah, I'm gonna go back there and nudge it into shore. Let's do that. Alright, so I'm not sure if this isn't the email I had in mind. That lens looks kind of dirty. Hold on a second. Alright. Tide's coming up, so it's going to dislodge me from the beach every once in a while. Keep me nose in, rowed in. Alright. Who do we got? What do we got? Listen to this. I may have read this before, but I think it may be worthy to read again. We'll see. I'm writing this on my personal iPad from an anonymous email address through a VPN because I have a career and fear jeopardizing it. Like you said in one of your last videos, I have a family, a retirement, health insurance, etc. to think about, and perhaps I'm just not as brave as some. I'm a family man, a hunter, a fisherman, general outdoorsman, and I'm also a special agent, otherwise known as a criminal investigator with Homeland Security Investigations, HSI. Before 9/11, our agency was the U.S. Customs Service under the Department of the Treasury, but now we're under the DHS umbrella. Then under the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE-1. Bureaucracy at its finest. The way I look at things is different than some. I swore to uphold the Constitution, and I don't take the attitude that I work for my management. I work for the people of the U.S. and have made my career in putting those who do harm away. I don't waste my time investigating violations of frivolous, perhaps unconstitutional laws, but if I told to investigate them, I often get with the United States Attorney's Office to better understand the intent of the law to determine how to proceed. Said violations often fail to meet federal guidelines for prosecution anyway. In these instances, I do my best to help inform the public so they understand how to adhere to export and import laws. In most areas in the country, latitude is given to the investigators to open cases to look into allegations of violations of law they are experts in. For example, I mostly investigate export violations involving arms, international trafficking in arms, ITAR. Sorry, I'm just trying to give you some background as so little is known about my agency, and we are just clumped into the ICE as bad attitude. I'd like to assist you as the sounding board so you can dispel any myths about the DHS and other agency criminal investigators. Part of becoming a criminal investigator requires you to go to the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, FLETC, and attend and graduate from the Criminal Investigator Training Program. I attended this class and graduated with other agents from the Bureau of Indian Affairs, BIA, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the U.S. Postal Service, the National Park Service, and more. I'm still friends with many of the classmates who work all around the globe and our country. Can't believe I read this, but I think it's worthy. Point 1. Agents cannot read your email. without a Title III search warrant. Drafting this type of search warrant takes weeks, if not months. These search warrants are the most scrutinized documents an agent will ever draft. The government can, however, monitor my email, as I have surrendered my rights as an employee. Point 2. I know for a fact, State Game Warden / Department of Environmental Conservation / Land Management, etc. suppress sightings of timber wolves and cougars. I personally witnessed a state game warden denying to the face of a fellow hunter the images he brought in of a cougar caught on his game camera. This is back when I was in college and an intern, so I didn't know if it has since changed at that office. I'm curious by nature and asked what this was about after the concerned citizen left, and the game warden shrugged it off, saying, "There is supposed to deny any reports and just say it's a big bobcat." He then told me a story of how they released 20 wolves, trying to reintroduce them, but they were not supposed to have done it. My time there was short and I never got any answers. I asked my classmates in the CITP, who were getting hired by the National Park Service, as some of them were prior game wardens in their respective states, about this, as it always bothered me, and one of them mentioned, as she had worked for the Park Service for years in a different capacity, that this happens all the time. They don't want to release info to the public unless the introduction of a species works. She also explained how there are grants for states, colleges, and conservation groups which rely on some species being endangered. If the numbers came back that they were no longer in jeopardy, the institutions would lose money. Like so many, including you, have said, follow the money, and who benefits financially. Right? Just like one of my past and current, I believe, contacts. I have to go into my Proton mail. I haven't been in there forever, but we have a very intelligent senior member of our society. Credentials coming out of his yin yang, and he told me flat out that he said, and I will share. He asked me not to share much, but I'm going to share this one statement because I believe it's important. He said, when the government, let's just say a government official looked him in the eye and said flat out, the government does not care about anything except for control of the labor to appease the entity. And they don't care about anything but. Believe me, since my whole life has been deeply intertwined into the real world, I can agree with that statement absolutely. The government does not care about shit when it comes to this part of the world. Nothing. Unless there's some money there. That's a fact. Sad but true. Sorry for the interruption. I only recently have heard of Mr. Politis and Missing 411, but guess who told me about it? A fellow special agent with DHS. Not only did he tell me about it, but he informed me he has witnessed some things he cannot rationalize. I've never been witness to any strange happenings while hunting, just the typical jumps and scares from the occasional bobcat scream, a mountain lion cruising my ridge, and the surprise of a curious moose sniffing me out. I stumbled upon your channel while looking deeper into the Missing 411 topic, and find it to be highly intriguing. So I've got to cut this short. I have to head into work. Thanks for what you do. If you have any questions for a person in my position, feel free to call me or email me back. Very respectfully, John Doe. Okay, man. You still with us? I wonder if you're still with us. I wonder how frustrated you and your colleagues are about what's going on in the planet today. And I don't even have to say any examples on here of what's going down. I'm sure you are very aware, but I would like to hear your honest opinion from you and your colleagues of what you think's going on and who could ultimately change it for the better. Quickly. Now, who's next? Mark, this is red. Hi, Steve. Doug Erickson from Minnesota again. As a game warden pilot, I had many opportunities to fly researchers and scientists doing surveys in remote areas of the state. Yes, I was a bush pilot, floats, skis, canoes, and all that stuff. When you sit in a plane for hours or days, you get to know these guys and you share information about your jobs. A game warden, officially a conservation officer, but the public never accepted that title, is a law enforcement officer in Minnesota, not a biologist. This opens things up for sharing knowledge. What I found out from these folks is that most of them are honest and diligent. Where a distortion of facts comes in is often at their superior's level or where the purse strings are pulled. An example of this is where government tells you how many meals of fish you can safely eat in a week. These decisions are often political, not scientific in nature, and are not giving you the info that was discovered. Another one is that gasohol actually provides us with cleaner exhaust, when at the time of its adoption, it was known to pollute more than regular gas. That, of course, takes into account from farm to production to vehicle. I know research from one government agency that destroyed the research at another agency after finding out that the agency destroyed his research. This was actual physical destruction, a crime, but beyond the statute of limitations. Go figure. An archaeologist that I knew once told me that on a dig, if you discovered an artifact out of context and reported it, you could see loss of funding or get trashed by your peers. Sound familiar to what you and your friends are finding? I did get the book Truth Denied. I will read it. Feel free to use this however you want, my name included. And by the way, my wife saw the video on YouTube and said, "Is that you? You never told me about that." End of email. Oh, that's good. I wonder how that discussion went with her. So, I know probably you guys aren't going to remember names, but usually I remember most. This is the man that emailed us. And he was sitting in a bush on the side of a lake. He snuck up to potentially catch a poacher. And he was hiding in the bush, and here's a guy in the boat, and he said all of a sudden the guy's vision went like this. Straight at him, and went straight for looking to him and found him. Crazy, and they had a real good discussion about that skill that man had. That was an interesting email. I'm glad you emailed me back, and I hope you email me back more, Eric. Absolutely appreciate you, man. You see anything over there yet? If that camera can even see over there properly. It's too dark for me to see in the view screen here. Should be something there eventually. There's some geese on that bump right there in front of the old cabin, so you know what birds' eyeballs are like. If a bear is coming near, they're going to know first, and they're probably going to squawk. I'm guessing. It is kind of funny when we do have game behind me, and I don't know until I get home, and you guys see it. I've had 2 bucks. One time I made a video, and I was up in this mountain close to where I bow hunt my monster bucks, and I forget where I just came back from. I think I just came back from up north. I was against the bank, and it was about, I don't know, the Christmas tree regrowth and that logging cut surrounded by timber at the top was probably about 8-foot tall Christmas trees. So how old's that? I don't know, 10 years? Anyway, there was 2 bucks right behind me up on the slope, looking at me, watching me read emails. I didn't have a frickin' clue until I got home and checked the email. That was pretty cool. What else we had? We had bears behind me. A few other things. Who's next? Well, this is probably the shortest email in email history on this channel. Mark it as read. It's titled, "Thank you, Steve. You shared my story. Since then, I've had a peace come over me. Thank you, Steve, for sharing my story. Albert Hunt." Albert, thank you for sending it in. That is a great email. Short, doesn't mean much to some, but it means a lot to me because it means that what we're doing is working. A lot of people find relief sharing the story here. That's great. All right, what's this one? This is titled South Korea. Dear Steve, writing from South Korea. Didn't see anything, just felt like prey. I felt like I'd been watched before and feel quite sensitive to when people have their eyes on me. But never anything coordinated like this. I was on Jeju Island. I don't know how to pronounce this. Jeju Island. Jeju Island in South Korea with my family for a vacation. The island is a dormant volcano. I wanted to try a solo hike up the volcano, Mount Halasan. 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 The weather was overcast and drizzling. I got to the northern trailhead a little before 4 a.m. I wanted to get up and down and back to the hotel by lunch. The lot was empty. I got my pack and headlamp and headed up. There was a sign close to the start of the trail saying that the trail had been closed near the top due to a mudslide. But you could still hike up to that point. I thought about driving to the eastern trailhead, but figured I was here, and if I made it that close, I would just make my own trail to the top. I've bushwhacked and solo camped in Colorado many times. Once in the forest, it was black. I was on the north side, and it was overcast. No light, other than from my headlamp, and just the sound of my footsteps and the drizzle. The trail came along and then followed a water course. It was on my right. It got deep in parts, but the trail stayed on the edge of it, and all of a sudden, I stopped, and I was instantly on alert. I felt that something was there. At this time, I was just alert and not scared. I turned on a flashlight, I had to, and started scanning up and down the water course and all around me. But I felt whatever it was in the water course, which at this point was a wide and shallow, rocky gully. Lots of places to hide. Okay, logic kicked in. Nothing on this island is big enough to threaten me except pigs, and they don't want anything to do with me. So, on I went up the trail for a while till I heard a stone turn in the gully behind me, but quite a ways past where I'd been. I asked myself, is something following me? Or is someone coming up the trail behind me? Doubt started to creep into the back of my mind, and I started thinking about heading back, which is strange because I love getting in the mountains. I've never really been spooked, and was super excited about this hike. I pushed on, hearing things every once in a while, and I started to feel like I'm going the wrong way, like I'm walking against the current. But there ain't no wind or anything. It's all coming from inside my head. And then I hear a stone turn in the gully up the trailhead ahead of me, and I flip into fight or flight mode. It's not something. It's some things. Adrenaline is pumping and I'm scared. I have my headlamp, my flashlight in my left hand, and my knife in my right, and I'm scanning 360 degrees. No question now, I was going the wrong way. I start half backing down, instantly sweeping, but not in any regular pattern to see if I can catch something moving. I must have been a sight. The sound that was coming from below me is now on the opposite side of the gully, parallel to me, and whatever was up that trail, the trail seems to be on the trail side of the gully. And now that I've started down, I hear something in the forest on the other flank. The infrequent sounds I heard on the way up are now much more frequent and noticeable. Excuse me. Stones being knocked out of their sockets. Excuse me. And branches being stepped on. But I still couldn't see anything. It's like I was being herded down the mountain. Heart racing the whole way until I got close to the trailhead, and then poof, it was over. The pressure was gone. It was like waking up from surgery and trying to shake off the anesthetic. I had no idea what just happened, but I could tell that they had stopped driving me. I was where they wanted me. It was about 6 a.m. No one had been on the trail behind me. The parking lot was still empty. Apparently everyone else got the memo. I was totally exhausted from adrenaline and tension. I had to go to the bathroom, but figured I could hold it a bit longer. Got in the car and left. Got back to the hotel, climbed in bed, and laid wide-eyed and confused until my family woke up. I searched online for missing persons on the mountain, bears, anything out of the ordinary, and asked my wife, she's Korean, to do the same. Couldn't find anything except for ghost stories. The island has a brutal history, and the ghosts that go along with it. What pushed me It wasn't just spirit, though. There was flesh to them. The island is full of lava tubes, underground highways, if you ask me. But at that point, thinking about the foot traffic those trails must see, and without any other corroborating evidence, I started questioning my experience. Had I spooked myself? So I kind of brushed it off as something strange, especially since a year later my whole family went up the Eastern Trail, started after sunrise, and had a great time with great weather and no funny feelings. And then I started listening to your channel and felt some similarities, especially the pressure part. And aside from the instinctual fear, I can understand fear. The crazy thing I can't get over is the thought process that took place in my head in that short span of time on that trail. Never have I turned a 180 so quickly, both logically and emotionally, on a plan of action. It was like the thoughts were being force-fed to me. It hasn't stopped me from hiking. Korea's super safe anyway, just the pigs. But I do have a new awareness now. Not outside, but in. I monitor myself, my gut feelings, and my thought processes. We're headed back in June this year, and I'm planning on trying again solo from the northern trailhead. But this time I might start a little later. I want to have a better look at the gully. Thank you for your time, effort, platform, and your encouragement. It is truly valuable. Sincerely, Lewis. Lewis, appreciate you, man. I believe you may be the first one to email from South America. And there's a big bear. That's big enough. I think it's a big one. He's cruising. I might go over there and videotape that one. That fits the description I always tell people. When you see a bear at first glance and think it's big, it usually is. Where is he? Looking through the viewfinder, sorry. It's moving kind of quick. Big bear. I'll move a little slower than that, but he might be rutting. Need a broadside on him. So he could be big from behind. I'm just trying to decide if I want to go over there and sneak up on him and videotape him or not. I think that's a big bear. I don't know if he's going to be there long enough for us to get over there and videotape him. Alright, I'm going to sneak up on him. What the hell. See, wind's at my back. Not that big. One day it will be. That's what happens when you don't bring binoculars with you. Alright. Anyway, sorry. Getting back to South Korea thing. If you are still here following this channel, I hope you are. make sure you email us back. And if you've been talking around your community about, or anywhere around that area, if about these things, these weird experiences, somebody else has probably had them too. I don't believe we've had South Korea email in yet. Maybe I'm wrong. And also, if you do find out more and you do email me back, give me a list of what kind of wildlife's running around there, because I don't have a clue about the wildlife in South Korea at all. And I would be very curious to hear about that. And even to hear if there is actually hunting there, maybe. Is there antlered game? Is there bears? Is there wolves? There probably is wolves. I'd like to hear about that. But more importantly, if there is odd things going on in South Korea, hopefully, possibly, the people who have witnessed those experiences are here watching this channel. And they might be motivated to email us in and share with us their knowledge. I think that'd be a good thing. Now, I gotta park my boat again somewhere. Still got a good feeling about back there. I'm gonna go back there again. I know there's a monster bear here, and I got him on a trail camera over there. I'm gonna go back there for a little bit. All right, back from that little interruption. Can't help myself. Bread. All right, here we go. Things do go bump in the night is the title of this email. Howdy, Steve. I'm a 55-year-old father of 3. I love going into the mountains and doing some fishing, target shooting, and riding my 4-wheelers. I gotta say, you are the man. I love the views and your backgrounds when you read the people's experiences. I've been listening to you now for a few years, and I finally decided to write in. Here's my first story. Back in the late 90s, early 2000s, me, my wife, my buddy, and his wife were on his front porch. It was after midnight. We were saying our goodbyes after a night of hanging out when this orb of light came over his garage and hovered over his porch roof. We were all staring with our mouths hanging open. It was a damned fairy. It was about 12 inches in length. You could clearly see its head and face, arms and legs dangling while it was hovering, with a glow of light around it. The damn thing was actually looking at all of us, head going back and forth as it looked at every one of us. Then it flew off. My wife and friends said, "What the F was that?" I said, "That was an effing fairy." They still to this day will not admit it. That happened just outside of Honeybrook, PA. Moving forward, sometime around 06-07, I was on my way home late one night from my brother's place in Lancaster, PA. As I was coming down a steep hill, just after I came over the Welsh Mountain, in my headlights were 2 glowing red eyes. As I got closer, I could see a big dark figure step over a fence. Thought to myself, that was a crazy looking deer. As I got to the location, I stopped my truck and could hear something moving in the bush. I never thought I'd see one of those damn things. In fact, after all those years, I didn't know what I'd seen until listening to your channel. What's really strange is to my left of the road is a housing development. I went back to the location during the day and noticed a power supply unit between 2 houses. Could it have come through a portal? Everyone I talk to about it says I'm crazy. Even my youngest son says, "You didn't see a Sasquatch, Dad. They aren't around here." I know what I seen that night, and I know they are real. If fairies are real, so are those damn things. Another time, me and my family were camping in Potter County, PA. It was a Sunday night, and everyone in the campground had checked out in our area. Our site was on the side of the mountain towards the bottom, near a creek. My wife and son went to bed. My daughter and I stayed up to look at the stars. Where we were located was a hollow, and you could see the night sky. It was beautiful. About an hour into looking at the stars, we heard 2 rocks banging together down at the creek. It was around 1 a.m. My daughter says, "Did you hear that?" And I said, "Hell yeah, kid, I hear it." She grabbed the spotlight as soon as I turned on the... She grabbed the spotlight. As soon as I turned on the light, it stopped. We couldn't see anything. The odd thing that happened that night, I had a weird dream that some beast was walking around our pop-up camper, dragging his hand across the canvas. My wife said she had a similar dream. She didn't even know what me and my daughter had heard the night before. Moving forward again last summer at my place, we had company over. I was tending to the campfire when my brother, his wife, and my wife both saw an orb of light go behind the garage, then disappeared. Nothing happened that night, but Steve, there is definitely some crazy shit going on. Keep doing what you do and be safe out there. I'd love to go fishing with you someday. Blessings to you and your family. P.S. For your eyes only. Okay, man, got you. I'll check it out. A fairy. An effing fairy. I don't have any experience with fairies, but I wonder what would make you say it was a fairy. You know what I mean? Instead of a ball of light with some kind of a being in it. I don't know. There's not much I can say about that one, that's for sure. I mean, we can comment on the orbs. That's very, very common. There's a massive pattern with the orb thing and life forms inside them. There's no getting out of that. Nobody can tell you that's not real because there's too many witnesses. And the witnesses are the people. The witnesses are us, right? You can't deny us. You can't deny us. You just can't. I wonder how many more people have seen something like that. The geese are still there, so I'm guessing I haven't missed out on anything walking behind me. Wedge against the shore tighter again. This water's coming up quick. Pennsylvania. So much goes on in that state. I wonder why. I wonder what it is geographically that makes so many places so active, right? It's got to be the energy, right? Excuse me. All right, here we go. Excuse me. Mark, this is red. Where's this blood coming from? Triggering memories. Creepy winter cabin experience and the Minnesota Iceman. All right. Hi, Steve. This is going to be a long email. Just so you know. LOL. I've read and reread this till I'm dizzy. I hope there are no typos or punctuation glitches. It's still not going to save you from me. I stumble and fumble nonstop. I'll watch your channel since sometime in early to mid 2018. So about 5 years now. Holy shit, we've been here that long doing this. Crazy. My dad had just died of cancer, and I was missing his hunting stories, so that's how I found How to Hunt. I'm sad. Sorry to hear that, but happy you found us. It's mind-blowing to see the way this channel has grown, isn't it? Like many others, I start watching for the hunting stories and your awesome horses. I sure miss Mr. Macaroni. I hope I spelled that right. And stayed for the Sabe experiences and the hard look at a reality many of us grew up dangerously unaware of, only to realize we've been duped. Have we ever? Keep doing what you're doing, Steve, and I and so many others thank you. Thanks to Sarah, too, for all she does behind the scenes. I wrote you a long time ago. I guess a couple of years, or maybe 3. My letter hasn't been read, unless I somehow missed it. I know you have hundreds of thousands of emails to get through, and my experience was not a sighting, but a night of dread. In an old 1800s miner's cabin in Summit County, Colorado, in the winter of 81-82, when I was a young woman in my early 20s. I'm 64 now. Wow. I have other reasons behind writing this, but I'll recap that experience here. My boyfriend and I had been winter camping near the tiny town of Montezuma on the Snake River. I kept wanting to find a cabin on a nearby mountain. We'd been told about it by locals. We should have stayed put at our camp, which was in the woods fairly close to town. I always felt safe. We spent several hours on 2 separate days searching for the cabin, and just when we were about to give up, I spotted it through the trees. We were happy to be getting indoors, but even as we began to clean up, sweeping out mouse crap and empty beer cans left over from kids' parties, and my boyfriend was patching a hole in the roof, I began to get uneasy. By the time we'd moved in, I found myself not wanting to be there, but I didn't want to complain or suggest we return to our first campsite since I'd pushed so hard for us to find the place. Moving from one area to the other wasn't easy because we had no vehicle. We either walked or thumbed rides and had a lot of gear. I couldn't understand my anxiety. I was finally living my dream and had years of camping and outdoors experience thanks to my dad, who took me and my brothers hunting and fishing during our growing up years. I'd always felt at home in the outdoors. Not at this cabin, though. It was an eerie place and so quiet. After moving in, we went down the mountain and ended up staying overnight with friends at a place in Keystone called Sunrise Employee Housing. We stayed there later than we meant to. It was snowing, getting near dark, and it was safer to wait it out. The next day we headed back up the trail, making our way up the mountainside and looking forward to the meal we were going to make. We buried a couple packages of burger beneath the bench in our small porch, packing snow all around them. When we got back, they were gone. We figured an animal had dug them out, but it was strange because there was no ripped up packaging left behind, and the snow was still packed tightly beneath the bench, as though someone had dug them out, then carefully repacked the snow. A person? That bothered me more than the idea it was an animal. No doubt. We explained it all away, deciding that it was dug out by a hungry animal, and it must have been snowing and blowing, sweeping the burger wrappings away, and the wind must have repacked the snow, or maybe the animal had dragged the whole thing away. My boyfriend had just started a lumberjacking job. His crew was cutting down trees infested with pine beetles, so he was wiped out and slept like the dead. When I awoke in the middle of the night with an urgent need to pee, I sat up and was immediately struck with an awful sense of dread and the strong feeling that I should not go outside. I've always had a sixth sense that's kept me out of trouble, so when I get a strong feeling, I pay attention. I really had to go, but was paralyzed with fear so intense, I curled back into my sleeping bag and lay awake for I don't know how long. I eventually convinced myself to try sleeping some more. I did get back to sleep, but slept fitfully, and each time I woke, I couldn't shake the feeling of utter dread. I believed at the time, or at least tried to convince myself, that I must have been the victim of an overactive imagination. It was ridiculous to be so afraid, yet there I was, and no amount of telling myself I was being a wuss made a difference. I thought about waking my boyfriend, but knew he was exhausted and had to be up early to get down the mountain and catch his ride to work. So what was I going to say? Wake up and come outdoors with me so I can pee? I had the bad feeling that something was waiting for me. And yet, logically, I thought I would be okay as long as I stayed in the cabin. We had no gun. It hadn't even occurred to me back then that we were hitchhiking as our main means of getting around and living in the wilderness with no firearms, only an axe and a knife. What were we thinking? My boyfriend was on parole for a non-violent crime, so we were playing by the rules. Otherwise, I'm sure we would have had a gun. I finally drifted off to sleep, and then I woke up again. It was before daybreak. The bad feeling was gone. Still, I was unnerved and ended up relieving myself just outside the door. I never said a word about any of it to my boyfriend. I still don't understand why. And ended up leaving Colorado in a rush. A couple days later, I grabbed my pack, thumbed to the nearby town of Frisco, caught the bus back to Nebraska, and was out of there. Yes, I did inform my boyfriend I was leaving, but never explained why. Women. I was kidding. I never felt that kind of fear before, and haven't felt anything like it since. It hasn't put me off the outdoors, for which I'm grateful. I hadn't even thought of it in years, but now I can bring it back as though it happened yesterday. How can a person forget something that bizarre? Listening to others' experiences brought that back, which brings me to this. I might title this, next part, Do Cryptids Play Practical Jokes? A friend of mine has been listening to your channel with me since 2018. At first he was skeptical. He spent a great amount of time in wilderness areas around the U.S. and roamed and fished all over the Everglades. He said he'd never seen anything weird. His skepticism gradually turned into, maybe there's something to this. The other day I was listening to you read a letter about someone being frightened away by something big and having something or someone mess with their fishing gear, I think. I don't recall the details of that email because all at once my friend who was cooking breakfast said from the kitchen, "Pillow." I said, "What?" He said, "My friend and I were on a bicycle trip. We stopped for the night to get some sleep. The next morning his pillow was gone." I just looked at him like, yeah, so? And he explained that they talked about it being weird because they'd both seen the pillow secured to his bike. They both recall him going to sleep with it under his head, and neither of them had heard anything or been awakened in the night. They'd been sleeping under the stars, no tent, there was calm weather, no high winds. Then, he said, they shrugged it and let it go. Isn't it crazy, some of the shit that we shrug off? Isn't it crazy? The things that people will shrug off, including me. I just woke up, my pillow's gone. Oh well, let's go fishing. When they got packed up and back on the road, they'd ridden a short distance when there it was, the pillow, sitting on the roadside as though it had been deliberately placed there. If the pillow had been in the direction they'd traveled from, they would have rationalized it must have fallen off the bike, that they both must have been wrong about seeing it the night before. But it was up the road, in the direction they were now traveling, on a stretch of road where they hadn't been yet. Whatever, whoever had taken it, maybe knew which direction they'd be heading. Sort of reminds me of your experience with the returned hunting arrow. Yeah, that one's a weird one. That gave me chills when my friend told me about it. I asked him the year, and he said around 71. He was 18 or 19, and he's 70 now. I asked the location, and he said either Virginia or West Virginia. They were headed up. They were headed home to Maryland. It's strange. But like so many have experienced, I haven't thought of that night in the cabin in years, and my friend hadn't thought of the vanishing pillow in probably decades. I guess it's easier for the human mind to sweep strange incidents under the carpet than accept that our world is not the place we've grown up believing it to be. It's not. It's definitely not. Why don't we trust our own ears and eyes and other senses? Why do our memories go on vacation when we run into odd things we can't explain? I know we're so much more than most of us have been conditioned to believe. On a somewhat different note, a while back someone in an email mentioned a writer named Lloyd Pye. Or maybe I saw it in the comments, I can't recall. But here's something that others may find interesting. The font changes here because it's copied from an email I sent to a friend November 28, 22. I can't erase the yellow highlights. I guess that's from searching for the email in my saved folder. No worries, when I save it to my notes, it all goes the same. So I can't see what you're talking about. Here's a weird one for you. It blew my mind. Yesterday I was watching a video by this writer, Lloyd Pye, who wrote Everything You Know Is Wrong. He's discussing how the evolutionary theory is completely wrong, and he goes into the ancient Sumerians, aliens, Sasquatch, and how humans were originally created through DNA manipulation to mine gold. A slave race. Somewhere along the way, he starts talking about the Minnesota Iceman and how it was actually a real juvenile Sasquatch that a guy had shot, frozen, and started dragging around the state fair circuit in the 60s and 70s. My jaw dropped. I saw that. I'm not saying it was positively real, but it effing blew my mind to hear that some people believe it was the real deal. Others say it was a hoax. But I gotta say, it was the most disturbing thing I've ever seen. We were at the Nebraska State Fair in Lincoln, and I was maybe 4 or 5 years old. I saw there was a sideshow, and I couldn't resist. I remember begging my dad to let me go see, and he went, and we went up some stairs. It was on a farm, and we walked all around it. The body was in a freezer with clear walls. It wasn't enormous, but fairly big. I can't say it was real looking, and I can't say it was fake. But I do remember I wondered why one of the eyes looked like it was missing. According to Lord Pye, the guy shot the creature's eye out. Later, people say the real body was switched with a fake. I keep thinking it would be cool if I'd actually seen an actual Sasquatch and never knew. Crazy, right? Steve, I wonder if any of your other viewers out there saw that exhibit. Maybe that's what started my fascination with what we called Bigfoot when I was a kid. It's strange that I'd completely forgotten about seeing the Iceman all those years ago. I'm glad to have that memory back. Thanks for reading. Your channel makes a difference for so many of us who are seeking answers and the truth. You can use my name. I'm old enough to not care what anyone thinks. All the best, Season Harper Fox, a.k.a. Susie. I absolutely appreciate the time you just took and donated here to all of us, Suze. Let's see how many people chime in about the Minnesota Iceman. I've seen that photo. Maybe I'll I'll Google it up and I'll use it for a thumbnail on the video. Can't quite tell. I think I see a deer. I don't have binoculars. I'm going to zoom in and see if I'm right. Or if it's something that I forget seeing, like a bush. I don't have binoculars. Oh, let's see what we got here. Nope. Just the right colored bush in the center of the screen at a distance. My blurry eyes from reading thought it was a deer. There is deer tracks in the mud here. There's not too many of them, but they're here. Years ago, I shot a frickin' big bear right there. Just to the left of that cabin, right from where I'm sitting, basically. Around 25 years ago. Isn't that crazy? Anyway, there we go. I guess I better get back to my co-pilot and see how she's making out. She's feeling any better. I don't know, maybe I'll go throw the prawn traps out or something. That's easy. To get some fresh prawns to go with our moose steaks we're going to eat tonight. It's funny, I read a couple of the comments with the idea of going on a TV show and winning $1 million. I've never been that guy that needed a pile of money. And I spent enough time with a lot of people over the years who had a lot of money. And it's funny. When I would guide these various characters in the middle of nowhere, you spend 10 to 14 days one-on-one all day long. And they begin to trust you, and I can read the body language quite easily. I read people very easily now, after years of observing. And typically with these people, and we're talking billionaires, multi-millionaires, powerhouse execs, all sorts of stuff, country singers, celebrities, sports people, basically everybody. And once I can tell just by how someone looks at you and squares up with you when they finally become comfortable with me and realize there's nothing they got that I want. We're just here to have fun, experience all this crazy shit. And then we become friends, and then we have real conversations, and their guard isn't up, or they stop slinging their dick and trying to name drop and talk about everything they own, which doesn't do anything for me, until they finally figure it out. And then it's really good, and I learn a lot, and I learn about people, and I see, and I listen. And once I know they're comfortable and they trust me, we'll be sitting on a mountain, and I was like, come on, man, like, how much money do you need? And be like, what do you mean? There's an eagle right above me, but I can't see him. That's pretty cool. And I'll go, well, I don't understand what drives people, why do the people need so much money? As I said flat out, I go, I mean, you put something like, I don't know, put $10 million in my bank account, I don't have time to waste to make money. And if I had family, my family is now going to be wearing out flip-flops on every beautiful place and view and beach in the planet before we run out of time. But that's how my brain works. And you know what? You wouldn't believe how many people that I met along the way, and their answer was, what? It's never enough. What? You know, it's such a bizarre thing to witness. And that is the character flaw, I believe, that has driven people to be in the position of ultimate power and control, right? It's never enough. It's never enough. Probably the amount of control and power for them is never enough. And it's funny, I can see the trait now. I recognize it in many people. You know, the Joe Rogan podcast wasn't no secret. With a Spotify deal, they figured he made around $100 million. $100 million, all right? $100 million. And then I've seen, I don't follow him so much. I don't follow him now, but how, it's really weird, unless I'm missing something. But how does someone have $100 million plus, and then you're making numerous millions of dollars from your podcast, and then you sit and read out products for your sponsors. I don't get it. It's like, wait a minute, you've got over $100 million and you make sure you take your time out to read sponsorship to get more money? Such a bizarre thing for me to watch people as they ride along. I mean, cheats your own. If that's what floats your boat, go ahead. But I mean, you know what? Just so you guys know, I probably get around a dozen or more emails every single day of people wanting to sponsor this channel and having me promote their products. I don't even read them anymore. I just don't read them. I skip by them. I don't know much about it. I wouldn't even know how to do it. How much? Well, I had some people offer me $3,500, $2,500, $1,500, $3,000 in the email. I haven't done it once. The bills are paid. Probably drive you guys bonkers if I did something like that, wouldn't it? Or maybe there's something I'm missing. I don't know. But anyway, I thought I would drop that on you guys so you guys know what I have witnessed and experienced in this lifetime when it comes to people who have a shit piss pile of money. Oh, there goes the eagle. You hear him fly away? Oh, he was right there. He was about 25 feet above me. Hopefully you heard his wings go there. Anyways, I thought I'd drop that little tidbit so you might be able to understand a little more why it would be tough for me to miss out on a few months of my life, which I love, just for some money. And I definitely heard my stance on reality TVs. I've had reality TV show offers. I've had a few in the past. And it's like, come on, really? Have you ever watched any of my videos? Are you really asking me to be on a reality TV show? But the alone thing would be a challenge, I guess. It would be. But you're allowed to bring a bow, a hunting bow. I grew up bow hunting. I shot my first, for my history on my outdoors. I taught myself how to hunt. And I used to have to go out to my mother's. She left us for this drunken skid. And we had to, due to the part of the divorce agreement, whatever, we had to go out to her place every second weekend for the weekend. They lived right on the edge of the woods. And I would just run around in the woods. And then apparently the dirtbag had a recurve bow sitting there. I guess he tried to get into archery with all the co-workers at this union sheet metal shop they were all working at. So his bow's sitting there. That's how I grabbed the bow and started running around the forest with that. And then I finally shot my first rabbit. And then I brought it home and made my parents cook it so I could eat it. And then I eventually got my hunting license. And I didn't have anybody in my family who could take me hunting. So I got my hunting license, I took the course, I got it. And that first year, I harvested a great big 5-point blacktail buck with my bow and a spike my first year. And then I shot a monster buck every year after that because that's all I did. I ran around the forest learning how to hunt. What am I getting at? Sorry, I'm babbling. So the bow hunting part of it, I bow hunted all my life. You name it, I've harvested with a bow. I prefer a bow. So seeing that you're allowed to bow hunt on that show, be like, you're allowed to kill a moose? God, really? The challenge, I'm talking about what I'm trying to visualize the challenges that I would have to be there. Do I get lonely in the woods? No. I mean, a couple times I have, you want to go home, but it doesn't wear on me. It's never wore on me to want to go home. I never really, really want to go home during my solo expeditions in the middle of nowhere. It's my element. I frickin' love it. I thrive in it. Sarah knows. She's already been pre-warned. When it comes time, if it comes time to that end of the ride, I will be taking my last hike. I'll say goodbye to everybody, and I'll take my last hike in the mountains, and that's how I plan on ending, unless it's sudden. Unless I come sliding out the butthole of a grizzly bear one day that's out of my control. Or halibut fishing by myself and I fall off the boat anchored or something ridiculous. But that's my plan. When it comes to the end of this ride, if I have the choice and if I have the heads up, it's coming to an end. I'm taking my last hike. I will not be in a home. I will not be in a hospital bed. I'm babbling away, aren't I? Anyway. Babbling away. So I'd let you guys know my stance on the money thing. And why it would be challenging for me to agree to go on that show if I ever had the opportunity. I'd have to do some big thinking. Big thinking how anybody would benefit from me going on that show, besides the producers, right? And furthermore, I've guided a lot of hunting shows, a lot of TV shows, and when you see what goes on behind the scenes, it makes you want to barf, and that is why I developed my hunting apps, was to help people get true, honest knowledge without the BS, right? So I have zero tolerance for BS. Anyway, speaking of BS, I gotta stop babbling. I gotta get back and see what my partner's doing and go out and utilize some of this day and see what's up. The sun's coming out, the fog's busting up, so you know what that does to females. The sun comes out, the females thrive. It gets chilly, they hide. She wants to probably thrive, so I better get back. And I'll be back shortly. The stealthy hunting dog. Got her eyes locked on a bear about 300 yards away, easily. It's crazy.